Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome back to Obas Trending Gist. Today, we are diving deep into Nigeria's political scene as we feature a segment from Arise News Morning Show. Dr. Reuben Abati engages Sumner Sambo, Arise Director of News and Political Editor, in a thought-provoking discussion covering vital issues: the push for electoral reforms, the ongoing speculations about the next Inec chairman, and the political ambition of prominent figures like Pastor Tunde Bakare and Adebayo Adelabu. It is a candid look at the challenges and expectations leading up to the 2027 elections. Sit back and take a watch.
The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, has urged the National Assembly to expedite the passage of proposed amendments to the country's electoral legal framework. Yakubu appealed last Thursday in Abuja during a meeting with the European Union Election Observation Follow-up mission to Nigeria, led by Barry Andrews, who also headed the EU mission during the 2023 general election. In other news, Tunde Bakare, founder of the Citadel Global Community Church and a prominent voice in Nigeria's political discourse, has once again stirred conversations with his refusal to bow to pressure from political heavyweights urging him to join the African Democratic Congress, ADC. Speaking at the maiden edition of the Citadel School of Governance Dialogue series in Lagos, Bakare made it clear that his political convictions remain rooted in principle, not party persuasion. He disclosed that the persuasion extended beyond casual invitations, noting that a former governor and a former minister from the Southwest were among those urging him to make the move. In a political climate where defections have become a common survival strategy, Bakare's revelation underscores how political parties continue to court prominent individuals to bolster their credibility ahead of the next electoral cycle. Adebayo Adelabu, Nigeria's Minister of Power, has declared that it is his turn to become the next governor of Oyo State, setting the stage for what could be one of the most heated political battles in the state's history. Adelabu, who made the statement over the weekend, said he is confident that his time has come to lead Oyo, describing himself as the most qualified and prepared to take over from the current governor, Seyi Makinde, when the state goes to the polls in 2027. Speaking with supporters and party loyalists, the minister said his political journey and experiences both in business and government have positioned him to serve Oyo people better than anyone else. Joining us on Political Brief to discuss these stories is Arise Director of News and Politics Editor, Sumner Sambo. Good morning, Sumner. Good to see you.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Dr. Abati. Good morning, Rufai.
Good morning, Sumner.
And good morning to our viewers.
Well, good morning, Sumner Sambo. Well, three issues on the table. Now, on the issue of INEC, well, the INEC chairman and INEC as a body has been calling for reform, the importance of reform, particularly asking for the Independent National Electoral Commission to be given the powers to prosecute electoral offenders and for the National Assembly to pass a National Electoral Offences Commission law. So, the outgoing INEC chairman is not saying anything new, in my view. However, what do you think in terms of electoral reforms generally and what INEC has been proposing? But the big story in that regard has to do with who is the next INEC chairman. This present INEC chairman, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, is on his way out. There have been speculations about who the next INEC chairman will be. There have been people saying, oh, he must come from the Southwest, because since that body was established, no Southwesterner has been chairman of that body. Would President Tinubu follow that auto-suggestion? Or there is some background information around Abuja about where the next INEC chairman will come from and who he will be. And then we can begin to talk about some of these more concrete issues. Now, the second thing, Pastor Tunde Bakare. Yeah, he's been approached by the ADC to identify with them. He's been a major figure in Nigerian politics since the return to democracy in 1999. And on the other side, the ADC will invite anybody anyway to come and join as they try to strengthen the opposition movement against President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But the big issue with Pastor Tunde Bakare comes from within the Christian body, from those who are saying that Pastor Tunde Bakare should leave politics alone and he should just concentrate on his pastoral duties and winning souls for Christ. I would like to know your personal opinion about that. However, the decision is his to make. Everybody, whether a pastor or a priest or whatever, has the right under the Constitution of Nigeria to make a choice. After all, a Reverend Father is the governor in one of the states.
Benue.
And before then,
Governor of Benue State.
Yes. So before then, in that same Benue State, we had Father Adasu also as a governor. But I would like just to know your personal opinion. As for Minister Adebayo Adelabu saying he's the next governor for your state, is this Emiloko syndrome becoming an some kind of a mini COVID-19, such that
has spread?
You have people saying, I now have COVID-19. I also want to be governor because it is Emiloko, or is his interest in the position coming from a different direction? 3 questions. Sorry, maybe too much for your plate.
Well, I mean, it's just the time. If the time is available, we can take care of all of this. But I must thank you so much for that insight too, while dropping your questions. Dr. Abati, let's talk about electoral reforms. That's the key issue Nigerians should be very much interested in at this point in time, because if not, we would have the political actors making a whole lot of noise in 2027 that may jeopardize national security if we do not put the electoral reforms in place, and then the processes for going to the polls and then announcing results are not properly put in place. Now, some of the key reforms that the Inec chairman is asking for are things that Nigerians have been asking for over the years. Like, for example, diaspora voting. A whole lot of Nigerians out there want to vote and want to have a voice in terms of who their leaders are. And then, of course, the ability of journalists like us, too, to be able to, vote on election, before election day. A whole lot of security service personnel do not vote before election day. Medical personnel and several Nigerians are left out because of the duties that they embark upon during election day. So it's good if we are able to vote before the election day like other countries actually do. And then you also have the issues of the electronic transmission of results. Now, we have the IREV being introduced by Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, one of the very beautiful innovation, ahead of the 2023 general election. And when it was put to test, a whole lot of controversies broke out. And we need to really give it a legal backing ahead of the 2027 general election. Then Electoral Offences Commission, we've seen the Ways panel, saying this right from the times of Yar'Adua's administration. Nothing much has been done. We need to look for ways to fix all of this, to reduce the issues of vote buying, to ensure that new agencies are also created to remove the logistics challenges that INEC faces on election day.
That first clip certainly laid out the groundwork for some serious debate. Dr. Abati set the stage with crucial questions about Nigeria's electoral system, the future of INEC's leadership, and the political ambition of figures like Pastor Tunde Bakare and Adebayo Adelabu. Sumner Sambo immediately highlighted the Independent National Electoral Commission's persistent calls for fundamental reforms. He pointed out the need for legal powers to prosecute electoral offenders and for the National Assembly to enact an Electoral Offences Commission law. The discussion also touched on the highly anticipated appointment of the next INEC chairman, raising questions about regional representation and whether the current administration would break traditional pattern. Sambo also touched upon the practical reforms like diaspora voting and electronic transmission of results, emphasizing the critical need for a solid legal framework to ensure credible elections, citing controversies around the IREF system. Now, let us watch the second half of this insightful discussion before I give my critical take. Take a
And then,
watch.
of course, the issues of special seats for women. You would have seen that a whole lot of women have been campaigning to have special seats. Now, all of these reforms, INEC proposed about 142 of those reforms, and they were submitted sometime late last year to early this year to the National Assembly. And sometime in April, there was a joint workshop, a meeting of the both houses of the National Assembly committees on electoral matters, and that happened in Lagos. Now, we haven't heard anything. There's supposed to be a public hearing. What is the National Assembly waiting for? Because by the middle of next year, we're going to have, candidates emerging in different political parties. So a whole lot of Nigerians should be speaking with the National Assembly members as they resume from their recess. We should hold them responsible to ensure that these electoral matters are brought to the front burners. Now, you're talking about the issues of the new INEC chairman too. A whole lot of these reforms that should have been in place before the new INEC chairman takes up this job are not going to be in place. So the new INEC chairman, when he or she comes, hopefully by December, will be inheriting some of these challenges that we have seen Mahmoud Yakubu talking about. The administrative part of it, INEC says it has already undertaken. But the constitutional aspect of it is where the challenges lie, and then the matters of the Electoral Act. So it's a three-pronged approach, and then INEC says it has done its own part, but the issues of the constitutional aspect and then the reforming of the Electoral Act, lies with the National Assembly and, of course, the 24 houses of assembly. So as we are with the new INEC chairman, a whole lot of people have been saying that Professor Joash Amopiton from Kogi State actually is being considered. I think that candidate actually fits the bill. I've seen the resume of that candidate, looks very fantastic. A professor of law, I mean, he's done a little bit of electoral matters here and there, has a very good resume. Yeah, whether the person comes from the north, south, east, or west doesn't matter. But of course, a whole lot of Nigerians will have problems with a Yoruba-speaking president actually nominating someone who's Yoruba. But let's be very factual here. If he does get it, he's coming from Kogi State, though from the Yoruba-speaking part of Kogi State. But is that what Nigerians are looking out for? No. We need someone who can conduct credible elections for a whole lot of Nigerians. And I can tell you that if it's in terms of the resume, he actually fits the bill. Nigerians should shove aside the issues. I mean, if we have a President Buhari having a northerner as INEC chairman, why shouldn't we have a President Tinubu from the southwest also having someone who's Yoruba-speaking as INEC chairman? That's not our focus. The focus is whoever is, brought to the seat, the person should have the capability to conduct elections that are freely acceptable, free, fair, credible, and then, of course, look at what is happening across other African countries. During the weekend, we had Peter Mutharika being sworn in as the Malawian president, 85-year-old. They conducted these elections, and the results were out very quickly. The dispute was not there so much. The outgoing president, Lazarus Chakwera, accepted those results. See what happened in Ghana. See what happened in other countries. Why is it that when it comes to that of Nigeria, it is the courts that decide who eventually becomes the president? And that's why you will see that former President Goodluck Jonathan has said that the court should have lesser, intrusion into the determinant of whoever becomes the president of the country. We should have lesser cases in the court. And so that is my belief, that if we're able to have these electoral reforms, the courts will have lesser role in determining who exactly becomes president, senators, governors, and all of that. And then we'll now move on to the issues you have raised with Pastor Tunde Bakare. Well, just to start by saying that this is a man who actually said that God had told him that he was going to be the 16th president of Nigeria. That was in 2023. And who is the 16th president of Nigeria at the moment? Well, the answer is right before us. It's President Bola Tinubu and not Pastor Tunde Bakare. And like you said, a whole lot of Nigerians have been saying that he should focus more on his pastoral duties rather than, focusing on elections. But it is right to actually be in any party. But I will salute his courage by saying that he's not going to defect. This is what we expect from a whole lot of statesmen, politicians. Stay in your political parties and build the parties. That's one good aspect that is coming out of that message. The ADC should look for others. They mustn't go and be poaching from others. There are a whole lot of Nigerians who don't belong to political parties, people of goodwill, of good character, and so on. Why must the ADC embark on poaching? They can build their own team. And so this is a message to a whole lot of people who are being approached. Stay in your political party and build. And if you're going to move, move to support others who can actually do something much better. But what I'm interested in is that the ADC should create better alternatives. PDP should create better alternatives to the policies of the APC-led federal government. If you want to beat President Tinubu in 2027, you need to create better alternative messages, better alternative policies, and not just to tell us that you need power from the incumbent. And then we now move on to the Oyo State issue that you've talked about. Well, like I said, a whole lot of people are beginning to wonder if Adebayo Adelabu has done his politics and mathematics very well, because Seyi Tinubu is very grounded and the PDP very grounded in Oyo politics. You would have seen what happened in the Ibadan North Federal Constituency election, and I can tell you that it was a test of 2027 to come, because the APC candidate for the House of Representatives seat only got 6 votes in his polling unit. What does that tell you ahead? It tells you that a whole lot of people are not feeling happy as to what happened in 2023, where Adebayo Adelabu had to, be brought in place from the his party, into the APC, and it now looked like he was being imposed. And there are talks here and there that if he's imposed as the governorship candidate of the APC in 2027, that what happened during the Ibadan North Federal Constituency election is what awaits the APC in 2027. Yes, he can say Emelokon because he's in the government of Emelokon at the center, but is it going to be the same at the fringes in Oyo State, where Makinde is in charge?
All right.
In the second part, Sumner Sambo continued to press on the urgency of the electoral reforms, reiterating INEC's 142 proposed amendment to the National Assembly and questioning the legislative inaction. He emphasized that capable leadership for INEC should transcend geographical origin, advocating for a focus on competence to deliver credible elections. Sambo drew comparison with other African nations like Malawi and Ghana, where electoral disputes are less litigious and results are accepted more readily, starkly contrasting with Nigeria's heavy reliance on judicial intervention. He also reflected on Pastor Tunde Bakare's political journey, urging politicians to focus on building strong parties and offering substantive policy alternatives rather than engaging in poaching and mere rhetoric. Finally, he used Adebayo Adelabu's declaration of Oyo governorship and the low APC votes in a recent by-election to highlight potential voters' dissatisfaction and the critical need for politicians to genuinely connect with the electorate. The discussion truly underscored a fundamental challenge in Nigeria's politics: the gap between aspiration for democratic reform and their practical implementation. INEC's persistent call for empowering legislation, especially regarding electoral offenses and diaspora voting, highlights a systematic weakness that successive governments have failed to address adequately. The focus on who the next INEC chairman will be, rather than what reforms will be enacted, reflects a deep-seated patron-client politics. Sambo's point about capability over origin is crucial, yet the underlying forces of regional balancing often overshadow merit. The comparison to other African nations is particularly stinging, revealing how much Nigeria's electoral process remains entangled in controversies and post-election litigation, undermining public trust. Pastor Bakare's political stance and Adelabu's Emilokon slogan further illustrates the blend of ambition, sometimes divorced from political reality, to concrete policy alternatives. They call for parties to build from within and offer robust policies against the incumbent, points to a mature democratic ideal that Nigeria is still striving for. The low vote count for the APC candidate in Ibadan North is a clear signal of public sentiment that politicians ignore at their peril. That's all for this episode of Obas Trending Gist. What are your thoughts on Nigeria's political landscape and the upcoming 2027 elections? Share your comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more trending discussions. See you next time.